versus Ohio State, positional group advantages, and which are going to matter the most to dictate the outcome of this ball game edition of the Always Irish Show. As always, you can find the program on YouTube. Do it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Appreciate it very much. Give the video a thumbs up if you approve of the content. Notifications on. You be alerted every time I get mad and do a show. You'll know right away. Can't miss it. Can't beat it. Twitter, search bar Always Irish or at Always Irish Inc. Emails, alwaysirishindy@gmail.com. Audio only anywhere you want me. You can find me. Call in line 312-900-8815. So, here we are. It's almost here, folks. One of the biggest ball games in the entire country. In conference, out of conference, whatever. Week 1, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Now, because it's a week 1 game and because of the two entities involved here, this matchup has been dissected, trisected, and bisected all summer. All summer. Because you have that big lead up. If it's game 2, everybody's talking about game 1, and then you have a week to do game 2. But because it's game 1, this is all everybody on both sides and the media and the fans have been talking about all year, all summer, all spring even. Hell, I want to look at some positional groups here between Ohio State and Notre Dame and look at where I think the talent and experience and potential lines up to favor one group or the other in these certain areas and why. And also, which ones are going to matter the most? That's the thing when you look at stacking up positional groups to see who's better in what area. You could do that. And you may come to find at the end of one of those experiments that Team A has an advantage in more areas numerically than the other team, Team B. But if the areas Team B is superior at are the ones that flash the most in a game and are more the reason of why teams win or lose games, that matters. That matters. When you're having this kind of discussion, I think that nuance has a lot to do with it. You can't just say if Team A has more things you feel good about than Team B. But if Team B feels better about all the things that put points on the board, you got to measure that. So that's going to be some of this as well. Let's start out here. Let's start with a couple very rudimentary, basic Ohio State themes. Now, this is as a Notre Dame guy. It's easy for me to go, oh, here's the themes of the year for Notre Dame. We all know them. We live them. Ohio State's different. That's not my team I follow. Trust me when I tell you, I can't wait to just not have to hear about Ohio State and interact with their fans every day. We're all getting dumber because of it. We are. So I'm about ready for the sand to run out of the hourglass on this. Good, bad, close game. I just want it over. I'm sick of dealing with these people. Some of them are fine. Most of them are not. It's like, I get it. How many times are you going to tweet me that you have a good quarterback and a lot of good receivers and you plan to score a lot of points? How many times in a day must I be reminded that that's the plan? I get it. I get it. Come up with something more original. I understand the plan here, right? And why you think that's what's going to happen. I get it. I'm just sick of hearing it. Sick of it. All right? Now, here's the most basic way to set this up. Ohio State's offense is expected to be electric, score a lot of points, be very exciting, light you up in 2 plays down the field, over the top, across the middle, all that. That's the offensive plan. Good running back too, Henderson. That's the plan. On defense, that's where I think it gets a lot more interesting if you're talking about the Ohio State end of it. on defense from the media and from a lot of the fans. Their position seems to be, we know there's a ton of raw athleticism and talent on the Ohio State defense, but they underperformed last year under what the fans are saying is bad coaching. And under Knowles, their new defensive coordinator, they expect to be great right away, shut Notre Dame down. I'm just telling you what I'm reading and what I'm tweeting. They expect to score 50 points through the air and then shut Notre Dame down. New defensive coordinator, all those problems solved. You know there's talent. I know there's talent. I'm not saying there's not. We all know that. There is. Ohio State's a terrific recruiting school. So you know there's that talent. The part where I'm wondering is expecting the new guy to have it all figured out week one is asking a lot. I'm not questioning Knowles' body of work overall. I'm certainly not going to question Ohio State's talent on the roster defensively overall. I'm not going to do that. I do feel emboldened to ask if week one's enough to have all of that defensive stuff figured out. That was a frustration for Ohio State and their fans all last year. I think that's fair. And it's like, well, fans blaming the defensive staff, that sounds kind of iffy. It sounds like excuse making. I've heard the Notre Dame people say, fine, but I lived through the BVG era and so did you. It's certainly possible to get rid of one guy who's very bad at his job and everything looks better after that. Notre Dame people, you can't roll your eyes if the Ohio State people have that position. We were in it with BVG, got rid of him, and the defenses got better instantly. So I'm not going to poo-poo that idea because our defense got better the second that weirdo was out of here. So that's one of my top questions. I know Ohio State has the dudes on defense, but can it be a smooth enough operation week one to get this done? And if it isn't, if there's a few plays in the game with the miscommunication or one guy's over here and he should be over there, whatever it is, can Notre Dame take advantage of those little mistakes? One guy in the wrong space, one miscommunication. If you're in a close ball game, taking advantage and identifying that one play could be the difference. Could be. So that's the question with them. Will that D be a smooth operation week one under the new defensive coordinator? So with these general Ohio State notes in mind, let's get into this a little bit further. Looking at these matchups, quarterback, Ohio State has the edge. There's no doubt. Their quarterback has more experience in big moments, is extremely gifted and athletic, and has a ton, and when I say a ton, I mean a ton of legitimate elite talent around him. Nobody could possibly say Tyler Buchner's in a better position at quarterback. You can't. No Notre Dame fan should ever say that. And I haven't seen anybody do it yet. There's no doubt quarterback, that edge goes to Ohio State. Now, this is all on paper. Does this mean that Tyler Buchner can't outplay Stroud? No, it doesn't. I'm just saying on paper, this is logically what it should be. Notre Dame's defense ramps up the pressure on that guy. Maybe he looks all rattled. He doesn't have time to unwind to those receivers, right? Things happen. But just looking at the experience and skill set, quarterback, Ohio State, no doubt. Wide receiver. Do I even have to say it? Notre Dame has like 3 bodies that aren't in the morgue or the ER or at another school because of the previous regime. And Ohio State has an abundance of riches with great athletes flying all over, fast, athletic, all that, freaks, all of it. So there's no doubt quarterback, wide receiver, edge leans heavily to the Buckeyes. Now, tight end, Notre Dame. Notre Dame. Michael Mayer's better than anything that Ohio State has. Also, they use their tight ends in some different ways. Sometimes they'll run a couple out there, and then it's more inline blocking, whatever. So, tight end, yeah, Michael Mayer gives the edge to Notre Dame. But here's one of those nuances where I want to ask you. Notre Dame has an edge in that battle, according to my opinion. Will they be able to leverage that difference enough to help them win the game? That's a different question entirely. If I say Notre Dame has that tight end edge, but then I need to ask, can they use it enough to make it win them that ball game? That's the question I have. Running back, super interesting. Super interesting. I think Henderson, top end, proven, you know what you're going to get. You got to give those guys, I believe, the benefit of that doubt. So I'm going to have to give the running back group to Ohio State with Henderson. But here's where it gets tricky. Their backup got hurt. I think he's out for the year. So they have affected depth, while Henderson's a frontline guy, no doubt about it. A showstopper. They have some depth concerns behind that. Flip it over to Notre Dame. You like what you see out of Tyree. You like Estime, slim down body. Okay, that bruiser. Diggs is out there with the blue jersey now in practice. Does that mean he's going to play or not against Ohio State? I don't know that. So I think maybe Henderson on the top end gives the notch to OSU. But depending how some of that depth looks after it, if Diggs can play, then I might go overall room Notre Dame. Top end elite Henderson. I think that's fair to do because I look at those differently. The totality of that room and the elite of the elite in that room. Those are different to me. I look at them different. But if Notre Dame, say Diggs can play, and then Tommy Rees could get creative with these tight ends and the running backs cover up some of the issues in the wide receiver room, I'm very interested in that, especially if you have Diggs back and you're not missing that body. You could use him. Then you could use Tyree some different ways if you have Diggs and Estime. It just gives you a lot more flexibility offensively if you're Notre Dame, if Diggs is back. Out there with the blue jersey yesterday, I don't know if he's going to play or not. Maybe I missed an announcement on that, or it's wait and see. I don't know. Maybe he plays and he's limited. I don't know. Now, here's something frustrating. There's just no way around it. This is frustrating me. Offensive line. I felt like this was going to be a pretty even matchup looking at Ohio State's offensive line, Notre Dame's. I was fully prepared to go down the road of Harry Keystan, rejuvenated meanness to the line. I think Notre Dame has a little bit more proven guys there. I like their size. I like their length. I was totally ready to say I felt the offensive line was very, very close. Maybe give the nudge to Notre Dame, the Harry advantage. But this Patterson injury, I don't know if I can now. Is it a wash? I don't like it. Doesn't look like he's going to play. It's an ankle. I've heard some people say he might try and play. But then are you limited? Are you better off not playing if you can't pivot on one foot? I don't know. But I don't like it. Because this is one of the top areas I felt pretty good about on Notre Dame's end. And we're not even in the game yet, and I don't feel as good about it. I'm sorry. I know every team has injuries in the I know. But it just seems like ours are always to the wrong guys or the worst guys. I felt really damn good about that offensive line, but if you're not even into week one, you already have injuries. I can't feel as good anymore. I can't. So frustrating. I'm not mad at anybody. It's just, what are the odds? One of the areas John feels great at and is going to be upbeat about, one of the best guys might not even play. It's just the way it goes when you're a Notre Dame guy. Give me a freaking break. So, I don't know. I was prepared to say Notre Dame with the edge, but now I don't know. So I hate that. It's got to be one of the areas I already felt good about to knock it down. Such is life, right? So, looking at all this offensively, what matters the most? What matters the most? I think you got to say offensive line for both units. You got to start there. And if you didn't want to start there, maybe I'll allow it. But then the next thing out of your mouth has to be, give me the quarterback and those great receivers. I'll take my chances. And that's what I would say too. Outside of offensive line, because I'm an old guy who values the hell out of that. Yeah, give me what's putting up points in championship college football now. Great quarterbacks, great receivers. So that's kind of where I'd go offensively at the biggest advantage. I do think they have them. That's not even like up for debate. We do not have the experience and proven skill and results out of our quarterback and wide receiver as they do. It's just a fact. Doesn't mean Notre Dame can't win the ball game. Just means they don't have those guys proven. So that's kind of how I see this. And the other reason I got to go with, which of these matchups matter the most? If I wanted to go quarterback, wide receiver over offensive line, the reasoning could be all you need when you have a quarterback that good and those skilled wide receivers they have, all you need is one guy to take one wrong step and you're done. Like, this is the combination that kills you before you even know you're dead and bleeding out. Couple false steps by the corner, in or out, or this way or that way. Those are 7-point mistakes against this offense. Notre Dame's defensive line can do a great job 90% of the game. If that 10% allows Stroud to hit 70-yard passes, 50-yard chunk plays all day, nobody's going to remember the 90% where you were solid. If the 10 you're not, result in 42 points, right? That's the issue with their strength being that quarterback wide receiver dynamic. You could be dead before you even know you're dying with that. Couple false steps, touchdowns. One wrong move by the corner, over the top, touchdown. You go 3 and out, give it back to him, same thing. That's how things snowball on old Brian Kelly Notre Dame teams. We're going to hope we avoid that this time with the new guy. But that's how it snowballs on Brian Kelly Notre Dame teams in these big moments. All right? Now, I think we all know their offense versus Notre Dame's defense is going to be a big deal and is probably the number one thing everybody's looking to see. But I still think Notre Dame's offensive line against Ohio State's defensive line is the biggest matchup of the game to me by far. By far. Every defense is going to have trouble slowing down Ohio State's offense. Every defense in the country. All right? You know they're going to get a certain amount of yards and whatever else, yak and everything else. No matter what, you know they are. They're going to get their points somehow, some way. You know that. So bake that in, that offense is hard to stop. Notre Dame's only chance in this game, it isn't going to be throwing a shutout against Ohio State defensively. Notre Dame's offensive line needs to win their matchup to make sure Notre Dame has the ball to keep it away from Ohio State, eat up some clock, calm things down, let the defense rest, go down the field, put up points. That is the best way Notre Dame can let its defense have a chance to eat and make plays. This offensive line has got to win their matchup. So they're not going 3 and out, kicking it back to Ohio State. Now you're on your heels. Nightmare. Notre Dame has no shot to win this game if the offensive line isn't great. No shot. None. Book it. Tweet it. Bookmark it. Whatever you want to do. Email it to your grandma. I don't care. If Notre Dame's offensive line doesn't win the day, Notre Dame has no chance in this game. The defense is the defense. I ain't even talking about that part right now. Notre Dame's offensive line against their defense, front seven, is the matchup that's going to dictate whether Notre Dame's in this game late third quarter or if it's over, we're a laughing stock. Everybody's writing Freeman off, all that. All that. I need to see Harry's guys get mean early. Get mean early. Now, let's switch over to the D. Now, this is where I think it gets interesting. Again, I feel like we think we know Notre Dame's defense is going to be very, very solid. I got news for you. They're going to be a lot more solid throughout the year than what they're going to look like in this game, just because of the nature of what this is. That's hard to take because it's week one. We're all excited about it. You want to say what you see week one is what your team's going to be for the year. Doesn't work that way. So just know this defense isn't going to look its best week one. It's just not. They just got to do enough. They just got to do enough. So we know Notre Dame's defense is solid. What we know for sure about Ohio State's just isn't as clear. Talent is talent, and they have it. It's just either young and unproven or underperformed last year. Like, so much is being placed on Knowles instantly, having everything fixed week one. That's the part of this that's most interesting to me. It all from the Ohio State end seems like this guy's here now. The other guys were bad. This defense is fixed. I don't know if you could do that all in one offseason and be perfect week one. I don't know. So in mass, that's the big scale thing we're looking at in this game. So defensive line. I'm taking Notre Dame by a little bit. I think Ohio State probably has more potential, more promise, more younger guys with high-end upside, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about right now, week one in that game. I think Notre Dame's defensive line is more proven. But I think overall talent, potential, probably Ohio State, if that makes sense. How both those could be true at the same time. Linebackers. Love this group from Notre Dame. Marist, welcome back, brother. Lay some guys out. Maris Leofau's energy out. These just all over. I love it. The linebackers struggled for Ohio State last year. I like Notre Dame there. Secondaries, about even. About even. You saw flashes from Notre Dame last year where they looked good. Long patches where they looked terrible. The bowl game, everybody looked bad in the bowl game for Notre Dame secondary. And then you get into Ohio State again, where they're going to say, look at all this talent. Look at these good recruits, but the coaching was bad, whatever. That is a toss-up. And it could dictate the entire game. These secondaries both have some stuff I'm okay with. And also a sense of once that ball goes up, I don't know what's going to happen. Is our guy even going to be where he's supposed to be? I don't know. I think both fan bases have a little bit of that. Who's going to make the big play or big mistake could dictate the outcome in a ball game like this. But I see those secondaries as being pretty evenly matched question marks, let's say. Who's going to make the play? Who's going to give it up on the day? I don't know. Special teams. Here's the deal with special teams. I am not picking Notre Dame to be solid in special teams until I see it. All new specialists, new punter, new kicker, new all that. I don't trust that. I don't trust that. All right? You got Brian Mason, supposed to be world-renowned special teams coach. A lot more than Brian Polian, I hope. I got to see it. This guy's well-respected and all that as special teams guy. Beautiful. Congratulations. I can't rely on it till I see it. You better be good week one. You better be good week one. Kicking, punting, place kicking, all of it. Returning kicks, punts. I am not picking Notre Dame till I see it. Because I'm not getting burned on special teams by buying in, figuring it's okay, and then finding out it's not. I can't do that to my blood pressure, all right? So I'm not picking Notre Dame to have an advantage there when I've seen nothing in games. Nothing. All right? Groupie, I'd love to be one, but you got to earn it, son. I'd love to be a groupie for groupie. You got to earn it. Miss no kicks week one. Do your job. Make the kick. So, I ain't trying to be negative, but when I have not seen any specialists in real games and we have a new coordinator, I can't trust you. You got to earn that. The baseline here isn't I trust you. The baseline is you have to prove it to me. So don't get that twisted. Special teams got to be on point. Notre Dame, you're playing an elite team at their place. You can't afford any special team gaffes. Get serious. So, which advantages matter most in this game to me? That quarterback wide receiver dynamic is a big deal to me. That is one play, 7 points, potentially. Every time that dynamic's out there, their quarterback, their wide receiver, isn't going to be that easy for Notre Dame to score. It ain't. So that quarterback, wide receiver, secondary dynamic is huge in this game. Huge on both sides. So what matters most? Give me the groups that put points up the fastest. Quarterbacks, wide receivers. By default, secondary. Whose secondary is going to make plays? Who's going to give them up? And how often of each? High risk, high reward. High risk, high reward. All right? So, but again, Notre Dame offensive line, Ohio State defensive line. Notre Dame's in this ball game late. Notre Dame's offensive line's doing great. The other thing, we got to finish on this. Coaching. Week one. How big of a deal is that? Ryan Day's been around, not his first big-time ball game as head coach. It's at home. He's comfortable. Marcus, first game, coming back to alma mater. Little uncertainty of what do I do here? When do I do it? All of that. I don't know how you measure that, but it's got to be a part of the factor, right? Like it's got to be in the equation that it's his first real ball game on the job. Ryan Day doesn't have that kind of anxiety. Maybe you put less or more credence to that dynamic than I do. I don't know. I'm just bringing it up as a big difference. So that's where I think we're at. What did I miss? What do you see differently? What do you think of these matchups? Let me know.